You should be
What
proud.
is going on, everybody? Welcome. We're finally doing this on a Monday, as
Hey,
God intended. Stars are aligned today. Got my guy Kenneth with me. Got my guy Mo once again. This is not a See You Sunday show. This is actually Overreaction Monday. Excited to get it on and popping with this because I have not been a part of an ORM. I think at all this season.
you have. It's just been a few weeks. It's been a few weeks. You've been on ORM like early in the season. It's just been a few weeks.
So, before we got on, we were talking bets. Ken gave me an absolute winner yesterday. And I got greedy and I added because what was it? You gave me DJ Moore over like 50 receiving yards.
Well, I said DJ Moore 40 plus yards. I gave you Eckler 35 plus receiving. He went for like 100 receiving, and then Eckler touchdown in there. And I said bet first touchdown separate and put that together as a parlay. So I hope you at least took it separate, because if you took it separate, then you're up. Then you're up for the day.
Yes.
You got a little greedy on the parlay, but like a plus 350, I think is what it was around. You're not in a terrible spot then, but the additional leg, that's what gets you. You look at, man, that's win 250. I want to win 700. And you throw in that TD and it just
I did bet the Austin Eckler first touchdown separate. That's why I wasn't that upset about it yesterday when I didn't hit. But yeah, I got greedy. Got added a DJ Moore touchdown because I was big on this Bears team yesterday.
I've actually got two funny ones for you guys on the betting front because I had two buddies of mine text me. The first one was yesterday. He had a TD parlay that was perfect going into Sunday night football. He had a Lockett TD, he had an Andrews TD, he had a Chase TD, he had a Sutton TD, and then his last leg was Keenan Allen. So it was 5 to win 565. And I told him cash it out. His cash out was 250. I'm like, you're already up 50 times your bet. Cash out. He actually cashed it, and then Keenan Allen didn't get a touchdown. So I saved him $250 last night by him not waiting on Keenan Allen. The second one was another buddy of mine. He gave me, oh man, two of my parlays missed yesterday. I had every other leg. Mo, you want to know what was the one that ruined it? Chiefs money line. Now, why you throw a minus 500 into your parlay, I will never understand. Don't do it. The extra $20 isn't worth it.
It's not worth it, bro. It's really not.
It's not. I can see a minus 350, minus 250, fine, throw it in there. But the minus 500 leg misses, that's a tragic Sunday. Shout out my boy Cam for that one.
So
the Chiefs losing to the Broncos.
The Chiefs losing to the
Broncos. That's wild. That should be a lock.
Convincingly too.
Yeah, that should have been a lock.
Yeah.
So we're going to get it started. Man, it's been a minute since I've done an ORM. I do not remember. Not gonna lie.
Overreaction. Biggest winner, biggest loser, biggest overreaction. There you go.
Making sure I was not forgetting one because I felt like I was.
Cut and dry.
So, Mo, we will go ahead and start with you. Who is your biggest winner from the weekend?
Oh, God, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it.
Don't.
I'm not going to do it. So I'm going to leave it alone. I'm going to say the New York Jets. I'm going to say the Jets winning in overtime. I'm going to say Zach Wilson being able to make the play. Basically be able to make the throw to win the game. Set up the kicker for a game-winning field goal. The Jets defense obviously stepped up once again. We know how good that defense is. We do not question their defense week in and week out when they step on the field. We feel like they're good enough to beat anybody defensively. And sometimes your offense has to step up. Hey, you played an offense that was worse than yours, was able to win 13-10. And anything positive coming from Zach Wilson's side is always it's always a positive. When he gets that, I get to march down the field, be able to put us in a position to win, and we actually win the game. I feel like, we saw Aaron Rodgers. I don't know if y'all saw him, but, the world saw him. It went viral of him dropping back and throwing passes. I know it's warm-ups, before the game, but, the dude just tore his Achilles like 5 weeks ago. And now he's dropping back, throwing passes. It looks like a possibility that Aaron Rodgers could return if the Jets are in playoff position late in the season. And so to be able to go above 500, to be able to go 4-3, get some confidence in Zach Wilson, to maybe be able to win a few more games throughout the rest of the season, to put yourself in playoff position. A lot of teams that you needed to lose in order to make that win look a lot better, did lose. So I'm gonna say the Jets. I just, as much as Zach Wilson gets hated on, and I've been victim of it. Come on now, like, he hasn't been that good, but when he has those moments, you got to praise him. And he's basically Aaron Rodgers been out since week 1. And they're 4-3. Like, they're above 500. They're already better than you would think a Zach Wilson-led team would be. They look promising. The defense is even better than last year, and we knew how good they were. So, yeah, I got to give it to the Jets. I think the Jets are the biggest winner. To be able to get an ugly win goes to show that's like their, third ugly win, essentially. But they're able to win those close games no matter how it turns out. So it's got to be a plus to be Zach Wilson and be able to march out of there and beat the Giants.
That saves their season.
It did. Like, you look at them a lot different at 3-4 on the same day that you saw Aaron Rodgers in warmups dropping back and throwing passes. Like, that was a positive sign of like, hey, we need to win this game. And so you have to beat the teams that you're better than. They're better than the Giants. Like, on paper, walking onto the field, they are better than the Giants. You can lose games you're not supposed to win, but it's critical that you win every game that you're supposed to, starting with yesterday against the Giants.
Yeah, it was a fucking ugly game. But yeah, those are the games you're supposed to win. I wish the Commanders knew how to win games they were supposed to win against teams like the Giants, but we don't. So, we lose the games we're supposed to win, and we lose the games we're supposed to lose. So,
when you're on a team's QB3 that's named like Tommy Fettuccine or Tommy or whatever the hell his name was, like, you got to win that game at the end of the day. And
yeah, you do.
The Giants completely bungled it.
Like, when you're going up against the Olive Garden spokesperson, like,
are we at like a Brian Daboll conversation though? Like, have we hit the point where it's like, okay, I know he overachieved, but like anybody else, like, okay, if they overachieve, where you're like, well, we need to see this for 2 to 3 seasons. You made the playoffs. You could say you made Daniel Jones look better. At the end of the day, dude only threw 17 touchdowns. I'm sorry. You're completely failing as a head coach. I know Daniel Jones has been hurt. I know the offensive line is banged up. Like, there's a lot of things out of control of the head coach. But, like, bro, your team is terrible. Like, and people thought this was a playoff team. Like, they thought you were going to build off the momentum of what you walked into, winning a playoff game last year. The Giants won a playoff game last year, didn't? Yeah, they won a playoff.
They beat Minnesota.
Yeah, so, like, you won a playoff game. You were not supposed to be, like, top 5 pick worthy after winning a playoff game the following year. So, like, I think it's one of those. I'm not saying Brian Daboll gets fired. I just think we need to kind of evaluate, like, the thing that I always say. Sometimes guys are better coordinators than they are head coaches. Sometimes guys are just supposed to be offensive coordinators, not head coaches, because you can't fully focus on the offense now. You have to focus on the overall management of the team, and it seems like the offense is suffering from it.
I don't know if we're ready to have the conversation. I think he gets a pass only because Daniel Jones has been hurt.
But Tyrod Taylor won a game. Like, he won a game with Tyrod Taylor. And you go and play the Jets. Like, we talked about, this was a bad – and I know Tyrod Taylor gets hurt, so I know it's not fair. But I'm not saying – I think this is the icing on the cake to have the conversation, as opposed to this was a conversation that was brewing as far as what we think about Daboll, and then, like, they capitalize on it yesterday.
It's a team that went from everything going right last year to everything going wrong this year. And I think you could say the same for the Minnesota Vikings. Like, everything went right for them last year when they were winning all the 1-possession games. This year they're losing those games, and now, I mean, we know what happened yesterday with Kirk, so it's a tough loss for them. But it's just sometimes that's what's so great about the NFL too, is that one season, because there really wasn't a lot of change in New York, and they somehow went from a playoff winning team to 2-6. Like, it's
like one of the worst teams in the NFL. By adding a little bit, you got a little bit better. You added what you thought needed to be added, but at the same time, like, we didn't walk in and think the Giants roster was much better, but you won a playoff game. So at the end of the day, to think you should be pushing for a playoff spot, this was a division that people thought, hey, the NFC East, 4 teams can make it, because of the expectations of the Giants and the Cowboys and the Eagles, and the fact that we thought the Commanders would be good enough to push. They'd be that 4th team to push for a playoff spot like they did last year. They were in it the last couple weeks. So you thought that would be the case, and maybe the coin flips the right way and all 4 teams fall in the playoffs. And now, like, you're the bottom of the barrel team, and Washington's still the team that people thought could be viable for a playoff spot. Like, so you're the only team that's not exceeding expectations or reaching expectations in the division right now. Everybody else is on par of exactly where we thought they would be at.
Yeah. Kenneth, who's your biggest winner from the weekend?
Probably people who bet Cardinals plus 9.5, but that's a little bit sensitive for those that had Ravens minus 9.5, because I'm sure there was some furniture moving, some TVs being broken over that one overall. I guess a winner is Will Levis. Never threw.
Hell yeah.
Will Levis never threw 4 TDs in college in a game, and his first NFL start. 4 TDs. That's why I hung up the D-Hop jersey behind me too, because 3 touchdowns for old D-Hop, and
on 4 catches.
I know some people that sat him in some leagues because they weren't sure heading into the week, and now they're kicking themselves over it. But I mean, more generally, it's the Titans. They pick up a big home win against an Atlanta team that obviously Walker and I are very hopeful wins that division, and that's one that we felt like we had to have. But they now have a QB controversy in Tennessee. Actually, I don't even really think it's a controversy. I think it's just they're moving Tannehill at this point, and they trust in the fact that at the very least Malik Willis is behind them. There's probably a team that's going to call them about Tannehill. I mean, if you look even at the opponent that they played, Ritter ain't it. And so do they feel like, well, Heineke's at least there. There's other teams that could use a guy like Tannehill. So I think it's just a big win for them, because as an organization, they had to turn over the leaf of Tannehill's not it, but who's the guy? Because we got 2 QBs sitting here. I think Levis showed enough in his first start that he's going to at least get the reins for a few more weeks. He's going to get a few more weeks to prove himself. He's not for sure the franchise QB, but it's a big win for him stepping in and throwing 4 TDs in a game that basically keeps their season alive. They're 3-4 now. You win another game or 2 in a row, and you suddenly are above 500 and back in it. So I guess I would say the Titans.
Yeah. I don't know who my biggest winner is. The Eagles, I guess.
That was a weird weekend to like pick winners, didn't it? Because the
Well,
teams that
if we were to have an honest conversation, if we were to say teams, sure. But if we were to say players and have honest conversations about some of the stuff we saw yesterday on Sunday, then I would say no, it's very easy, because come on, like, I hate to do this, but Dak one of them too. Dak and Jalen Hurts, like both of them absolutely balled. They both look great. I mean, outside of a tipped interception, Dak looked perfect. Like, as close to perfect as you could get. You take away an interception, he's perfect. Jalen Hurts looked good with his defense looking absolutely terrible, giving up, like 400 plus yards against the Commanders, and you're able to win those games. Like, individual performances, I think, is easy than like finding teams, because pretty much, like Ken said, every team, most teams that were supposed to win won. Like, and they won and handled business. But if you just like, hey, take the teams out of it and you do individual players, like, Dak made me realize why I'm starting to hate Dak now. Like,
I'll go out on a limb and say the Bengals are the biggest winners.
Yeah.
yeah. Okay. That's
regardless of what you think of the 49ers and Brock Purdy, they're still one of the better teams. The Bengals. And again,
it was 42-10 just a few.
And that's, I will acknowledge the 42-10 while also understanding that
calm down.
They're just Dallas's kryptonite, and so
let's know our place.
It sucks to be that.
Everyone else call them.
It sucks to be the team.
We're not the ones to sit there and pass judgment.
I know. But we're in the standings.
But I even said this in the chat yesterday. Bengals are back. They've gotten for whatever reason. The Bengals just don't do well in the beginning of the season. Joe Burrow doesn't play in the preseason, so he takes the first 4 games of the regular season as his preseason. He played great. He showed great mobility. One of the plays specifically got out of his sack, stiff-armed his, I don't remember who it was. Might have been Bosa, had dude by his jersey, and Burrow just basically yeeted him off of him. Guys sideline had made a beautiful throw to T. Higgins. Bengals are back. Bengals are the biggest winner, more specifically Joe Burrow. He's looking great. He's looking like an MVP candidate once again.
Did they quietly become the biggest winner of the weekend, though? Like, I don't think that game was talked about enough, because, like, obviously, okay, I watched mainstream media today, and the focus was more about Brock Purdy and the 49ers and injuries and as opposed to the fact like the Bengals are on a win streak. They're
But they've
back.
been going to do that since he took over in San Fran. Like they haven't given him credit when he was 10-0, and they were certainly going to bury him once he lost 3 in a row. And
it's just the Bengals quietly are like they're back. Like everything that Rob said is like he emphasized it, but in the overall outlook of the NFL, like it's quietly everything that Rob said is like, oh,
you
shit,
know what? Also,
the Bengals are back.
They are still last place in their division. Now I know that it's by tiebreakers and the fact that they've lost division games already, and that whole division is above 500, which is pretty crazy because we know how bad Cleveland and Pittsburgh can look at times. But maybe that's why it's quiet, because people. I think the default was, well, Burrow, he was hurt early in the year. He's not going to get healthier as the year goes on. That's what we were all saying earlier in the year. And it looks like he's healthy now. Does it not? Like he's not having any mobility issues or anything like that. So now T. Higgins, he finally gets him involved in that offense again. Jamar Chase, Joe Mixon has been a big part of things. Like he was phenomenal yesterday for him. So I think that's probably why it's quiet. The fact that they didn't beat a lot of good teams until this game, and then it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, it was the statement game for them. Like
they do still have a hill to climb. They have the Browns, who are right above them in the standings, but the Browns always beat the Bengals early in the season. Ever since Joe Burrow's there, they usually get them later. Look at who else? The Steelers, who can all agree, Steelers. We said it on CU Sunday. Steelers were not a good 4-2 football team.
No. And you saw
they're not a good 4-3 football team.
Mm-hmm.
I expect them to still, especially with Kenny Pickett and his injury. We'll see what goes on with him. I think that's two teams that will be very easy to climb, and it'll come down to just like it has the last 2 years between the Bengals and the Ravens.
And I still would take the Bengals over the Ravens. Like regardless of what they did to Detroit, I'm still late in the season, week 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18, I'm taking the Bengals over the Ravens.
The key is the Bengals now have to win at worst 3 of their last 4 division games. Yeah. Like at worst, you have to go and win that, because then you're like the Ravens will have the tiebreaker on you. They're going to go and beat Pittsburgh or Cleveland a couple times, and they already have one over you. So that's kind of where they're at. And I think that part of it as well is NFL narratives, they take weeks to change what you think after the first couple weeks. Like right out of the gate, you go, they're cooked, they're done, and then they win 3 in a row, and you're like, okay, maybe they're back. Like we kind of did it with Jacksonville. Jacksonville had the tough start, and look now, they've won like 4 in a row.
What are they, 6-2 right now? Like they're sitting at 6-2 right now.
Yep. So they get back on track, and we're still not quite coming around because they had a bad loss to the Chiefs. Like that's what we're punishing them for is early losses. So
they're back.
I think it's just the overall NFL narrative. Once you've painted it in the first 2 or 3 weeks, it takes a lot to change it.
Yeah, 100%.
So, Ken, I will start with you on the biggest losers of the week, and I feel like there was quite a few of them.
Yeah, there really was. Man, that's kind of tough to. I can't even call the Packers losers because they're already going to be 31 in my power rankings, so that's really fit the bill for them. I'll give you a loser. I guess you have to go with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I consider that they're a big loser this week because there was a lot of people picking Pittsburgh this week. There was a lot of people that felt like that was a home spot for them, where Jacksonville, maybe they're not quite all the way back. Like this is a really good spot for them. And then Pickett gets hurt. Like that's tough. He was 10 of 16 for 71 yards, not the most impressive stats, but then the guy behind you is Mitchell Trubisky, and as great as that Pittsburgh defense is, I don't think that you can make up for the let's call it issues that Mitchell Trubisky possesses as a quarterback when he's on the field. And I think this just puts them in a spot of, I don't know how long Pickett's going to be out. It's a rib injury, so I think there's a chance that he could be back next week. If he doesn't, he's missing a week, which when you're Pittsburgh, you need to get every result that you can, knowing that We just talked about how bad they've looked. And if you have to start Trubisky next week with Will Levis coming into his second start, you find yourself at 500 suddenly, and then it's, oh, crap, hit the panic button. So I'm going to say Pittsburgh. I still believe that Mike Tomlin, until he doesn't go above 500, I'm just going to believe that they're going to figure out a way to win 9 games as bad as they look. But I think that's a loss for them yesterday, because that was a spot for them to actually go out and beat a quality opponent. And I mean, it was an ugly game in general. I don't know who wanted to watch Jags Steelers yesterday. It was pathetic.
I'm curious as to what the numbers actually were to people who watched that.
Nobody watched that shit. Come on, unless you were Steelers or Jags fans, nobody watched it. Come on.
There was probably people early, and then it was 6-3, and we're like, oh, no, I'm all the way out. like, let me go find something else. What's on? We got 38-31 Eagles Commanders? Yeah, man.
Mo, who do you have as your biggest loser?
Surprisingly, my biggest loser is a team that won, the Denver Broncos. And I'm going to tell you, because the Tuesday trade deadline is upon us. Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton, Justin Simmons, Patrick Surtain, anybody of any type of relevance can be had for the Denver Broncos. And guess what? You beat Kansas City, and guess what you are? You're right with you're second to last in the AFC, what sounds crazy. But guess what else you are? A game outside of 7th place of making the playoffs. Like, that's where you're sitting at right now. You winning that game just did 2 things. Make you have to contemplate over the next 24 hours whether you want to be all in and trading pieces and rebuilding, or whether you want to make a push for the playoffs when your quarterback's playing good. He's top 5 in majority of categories that actually matter. He's been a top 10 quarterback, hands down, bar none, based on his play. You haven't been losing games because of poor quarterback play. You've been losing games because of poor defensive play. And you won a game. So now you have 3 wins. You can't even just move on from Russell Wilson and tank for Caleb Williams. Like, that's essentially out of the realm of possibilities. The Bears lost. The Panthers are bad. The Cardinals are bad. Like, there's 3 to 4 teams, and you have a good enough team to win some games. So now you're stuck in limbo. I'm a game out of being within the playoffs. Now, tiebreakers and all that. But in 5 weeks, if the Broncos went 4-1, like, they're probably a playoff team in 5 weeks. Like, you're sitting at that possibility. And so you go and beat Kansas City. You were not supposed to win that game. A tanking team does not win that game. So to me, you more sent the message, no matter how poorly Kansas City played, you were supposed to play worse. If the goal was to be sellers at the trade deadline and not and punt on the season, and you didn't. And you beat a good team. You beat arguably the best team in the AFC. So I think the Broncos are loser for winning that game, because now you essentially, I think you're all out on being able to get Caleb Williams. I'm not sure if that was on their radar, but I think if I'm Sean Payton and I am going to get rid of Russell Wilson and take the cap hit after this season, it would be to get a Caleb Williams or Drake May. I think you're out on that. And now you're just wondering, you're sitting here contemplating, like, how much should we sell? Going into Sunday, we thought Jeudy, Sutton, Justin Simmons, Patrick Surtain could be had for a Jalen Ramsey type package. Like, every player relevant with a relevant name we thought could be gone for the Broncos. And now we're like, hey, maybe they compete for the next few weeks and make a playoff push. The only problem is you got to make that decision by tomorrow, because at the end of the day, you pass the trade deadline and don't sell, you stuck with that roster and you can't tank for nothing for the rest of the season. So you might as well keep trying to win games.
I love that they're the biggest loser because they won, but it makes sense because they should be trying to win 3 games. Like, if Sean Payton wants what he wants, which is not Russell Wilson, then 3 wins might be too many. Like,
exactly.
With how many bad teams there are, is 3 wins too many already for them? Like, even if they lost out, to potentially get a Caleb Williams type guy, it might be. Like, there's,
and you own your first round pick. Like, you were able to trade for Russell Wilson and own this year's first round pick. So, like, that's why I said, like, you should have been, no matter, Kansas City could have had their worst game of the season, which they did. You should have made sure yours was worse if what you're doing is tanking. A tanking team does not accidentally stumble on a win against Kansas City. Now, if you happen to beat the Bears, okay, there's nothing we can do about it. They're tanking, we tanking. It's the tankathon. Somebody got to win this game, or we tie it. But you don't play the way you played yesterday against the Kansas City Chiefs, and now be sitting here, you're 3-4. You're right there with the rest of the AFC, because they're all 3-4 and 3-5. And Cincinnati looks like they're back. They hold the 7th spot at 4-3. So now you're in a situation where it's like we're one game out of a playoff spot.
You've got 6 teams currently with 2 or less wins, and 2 of them only have 1 win. So you're now relying on all of those teams behind you to go out and win a couple games, which is a steep ask. Like, we're talking about Josh Dobbs, we're talking about Bryce Young, Mac Jones, Tyson Bagent, Tyson Fettuccine, and Jordan Not So Lovely to go and win football games.
With Caleb Williams hanging over all those teams' heads as far as the higher chance we get of getting him. Like you're in a bad spot. Like you winning this game puts you in a bad spot, and we'll find out if they're going to be as much sellers if they don't trade Judy, Sutton, Simmons, and I never really understood the whole trading Patrick Surtain thing, because even if I'm rebuilding, I'd love to have a franchise corner. So like, unless the package was bigger than what Jalen Ramsey with the Jags got, I'm not trading Patrick Surtain. That's a nice piece to, bro. Wide receiver is the premier position in the NFL right now, and so I can keep him, and I have a guy who can lock down the number 1 wide receiver. Cool. But other than that, like if they don't trade any of those guys, like at that point, you have to go all in on, hey, let's try and win games and sneak it to the playoffs. Like that's kind of the message you send depending on what happens between now and Tuesday. And there hasn't been a lot of action, but I think by the time we wake up tomorrow, late morning, early afternoon, right before that trade deadline, there's going to be a lot of moves. But if Denver's not involved in any of them, they're basically telling you we're not punting on the season. We actually found ourselves beating the Chiefs and having an opportunity. We could sneak into the playoffs if we keep trying to win games and actually build. And I think that's where you start to see Sean Payton kind of go all in on this roster and try and fix problems instead of getting rid of them and rebuilding. Weird that you're losing for winning, but hey, you know.
The only problem I have with that is that, you know, teams don't, front offices tank, players don't.
Yeah.
Players don't take. And it's hard to, and I know Sean Payton probably is thinking too, but I mean, if let's say that he does it as obvious as we're saying that he should have done it in calling basically anything short of, you know, calling QB nils for 4 straight quarters for 6.
I mean, yeah, you can't do that. Like, yeah,
right.
It's a lot of money, but
you still got to play. You still got to, you know, call certain plays, and I mean, they just executed better. I think it kind of helps because it kind of hopefully it bumps up people's trade stock and the price. But
by winning that game, like Ken said, by winning that game, do you want to be in the position that now we're selling everybody, but we might have won one too many games in order to get, because if you don't get, my thing is this, if you don't draft Caleb Williams or Drake May, to me, those are the two, like, okay, those are 1 and 2 if you need a quarterback. Now, unless you're like, now if the Broncos are like, I want to rock with Russell Wilson for another year or two, which they might have to because of his contract, but that's a front office and a head coach decision. But if they're like, hey, we can win a few games and just get the best talent possible around this team and around our quarterback, then fine. Like if Sean Payton's like, I think Russell Wilson actually can win us some games and we'll get him a Marvin Harrison Jr. or a Keon Coleman, or we'll add to this defense, fine. But everything coming into this season tells me that Sean Payton does not want his job tied to Russell Wilson. So now having 3 wins, like you might have 1 too many in order to get your franchise quarterback. Because I think this is a very deep quarterback group. But I think after Caleb Williams and Drake May, when you start trying to sell yourself on an upgrade over Russell Wilson, who's been a top 10 quarterback this year, and you start selling yourself on Michael Penix, Spencer Rattler, who else is coming? Quinn Ewers, JJ McCarthy. Like when you get into that group of quarterbacks, like I'm probably not even taking none of them in the first round if I have Russell Wilson. So now I'm in a weird spot. Do I want to build around Russell Wilson and just get the best talent available, which I can win 5 games and do that? Or am I trying to move on from my quarterback? So it really depends on Sean Payton's mentality. If he's okay with rocking with Russell Wilson, I'll be like, hey, you're allowed to win that game.
Sounds like he's not.
But exactly. I'm more going off of, it doesn't seem like he wants to tie his job for the next few years to Russell Wilson. So now I'm thinking about simply, if I'm going to tank and try and get a quarterback, I already beat the Bears, so I lose that tiebreaker. If we have the same record, they get a higher draft pick than I do. They got the Panthers pick. And on top of that, like I'm winning games. I'm beating a team like Kansas City. I'm only a game out of 7th place. Like you and 6 other AFC teams. But I'm just saying, you're only a game out of 7th place. Like you have to You can make
way too much time on the Broncos. I'm so over talking about Denver.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Is this a real conversation?
I know. It's more so like talking about Denver makes me sad, and like I came on here to enjoy this. So
my bad. It's just a real conversation. The media won't have this conversation. We get to do this. They won't do that. They talk about big brands. We get to talk about stuff like this that nobody else was thinking about on a Monday.
Next up on Overreaction Monday is Patrick Mahomes washed. Next on First Take.
I mean, yeah, like exactly. Like those are the conversations. Patrick Mahomes, should they be concerned? Like, bro, we
got to get T Swift off of tour.
Yeah, like come on, man. Like they were having that conversation. Like, come on, man. Like, let's talk real football, man. Let's talk about what you really seen. Not
all right, Rob. What you got?
So I will talk real football. I have two losers. The first one I will not spend a lot of time on because I've spent way too much time on Twitter talking about this. Ron Rivera has got to be the most incompetent, inept head coach in the history of the NFL. I don't care who you put up against him. He has got to be the most brain dead head coach in the history of this league. To go from last year to putting in Carson Wentz, who did absolutely nothing in his 27 minutes of game time in the regular season, put him in against the Browns, not knowing that if you lose that game, you are mathematically eliminated from playoff contention. Stupid. And then yesterday on that non-Devontae Adams catch that was ruled a catch.
Devontae Smith.
Devontae Smith. For it to be ruled a catch and to give the dumbest excuse of, I didn't see the replay. We didn't have time. Every dumbass on the couch knows you burn a timeout in that situation. You call a timeout to get a look at it because one or two things is going to happen. Either you get because that was a 4th and 4 play. You call the timeout, you get to see it, you challenge it, you win it. It's your ball with the lead. And let's say you call a timeout, you don't challenge, and you see that it was a catch. Okay, you burn a timeout. If you would have challenged it without looking at it and you wouldn't have gotten overturned, you're burning a timeout either way. Either way, you're losing a timeout. I'd rather lose a timeout than give up 7 points, which is what the Eagles went on to do right after that play. Scored a touchdown, and that's 2 gaffes on Ron Rivera when it comes to coaching and time management and just play management altogether against the Eagles. Not going for 2 in the first game was dumb, and then yesterday. But my real biggest loser is NFL officiating. NFL as a whole.
Oh my
the officiating,
God.
God awful.
Talk about it. Holy.
Not just the officiating on the field, but officiating headquarters in New York as well. So back to the Washington game, that Devontae Smith catch that they ruled it a catch. It wasn't actually a catch, but it was over 2 minutes. So the booth can initiate a review. I understand that. Cool. I'm on board with that. Eagles got to line, got a snap off, weren't able to challenge it. I'm cool with that. So in the rules, I love it. Jahan Dotson gets a dime thrown to him by Sam Howell. Is ruled a catch on the field. Devontae Smith is then hurt with 2 minutes and 5 seconds left. We are still above the 2 minutes left in the game, so the booth cannot initiate a review. Devontae Smith is hurt. The clock is stopped, and New York, from what I've read and from what I've seen, headquarters, NFL officiated headquarters in New York, tell the refs on the game, "Hey, that was not a catch. Rule it not a catch." So then they did. So then we had to then challenge it. It was not enough to overturn, but you could not even see the ball. The angle that they had, you could not see the ball touch the ground. And it baffles me that the NFL was able to see that, but was not able to see Devontae Smith not catch the ball or not do anything about it. Because you could clearly see Devontae Smith did not catch the ball. Yeah. Outside of that, Ken brought it up earlier. I still don't know what happened in the Cardinals-Ravens game. They marked the ball somewhere and then looked like they were going to trying to measure it, and then he just moved it up
Yeah.
And then Ravens started celebrating. Dobbs went up to the ref, was like, "The hell? Why'd you just do that?" And then that was it. That was the game. Like, and I understand that it would not have affected the outcome of the game most likely, but it affects betting. Regardless of what you think about betting,
They bought into betting, so they have to think about that because they bought into it. All the major networks have bought into betting. They got betting apps. Like at the end of the day, I'm not saying you. I'm with you. You bought into betting as a league, so therefore, like you don't got to be like, oh, this could affect the spread, but at the same time, like understanding that calls can affect, like it affects betting, and you've bought into it as a league. The NBA, the NFL, all of them have bought into it, so that does have to be a thought in the back of your mind.
it is hard because pretty much up until yesterday, I have never been the person to buy into the notion that NFL is rigged or that they fix games. I've always stated there'd be too many people involved to do that. The refs, they're still humans. It's a human element. But yesterday, I it's very hard to when you just for seemingly no reason move the ball back half a yard that effectively ends the game with the score that it's at. It's very hard to defend the NFL officiating.
Very hard.
I can't wait till we get to the biggest overreaction because, I got a couple of them, but one of them going to set the world on fire. I got an overreaction that's going to set the world on fire.
That's all my grabs and complaints today. So, Mo, lead right into it. Go ahead.
I'm going to say one, and it had nothing to do. It had everything to do with football this weekend and everything you said about officiating, but it ain't just NFL related. 2028 is going to be the downfall of football as we know it. When we play flag football in the Olympics, that is going to be the downfall of contact sports as we know it. There's a play that I'm going to call out, and it happened on Saturday, not Sunday, that Shiloh Sanders hit that got him ejected is going to be the reason. And on top of that was a bullshit targeting call. Sorry about the language, but that was a BS targeting call. He hit him dead in the chest. He did everything right for a defender to hit a guy as hard as you can, as legal as you can. Then the NFL is pushing for all their top athletes that we want guys to play. What is going to be the problem? Think about it. When is football not played? In June or July? What do we get to think about? Literally nothing. Off season, unless you're a baseball fan or anything. Basketball's done. Football's done. We get to watch the basketball team win the gold in the Olympics. We're getting the Avengers together. Guess what? Come 2028, now you get to throw what a flag football product would look like. Granted, it's going to be our best athletes against every other country that we're going to absolutely annihilate. But if you start to love the product of what flag football looks like, you change the dynamic of the NFL because safety is becoming an issue year in and year out. And we're seeing more egregious roughing the passers and blindside blocks and unnecessary roughness. So I think 2028 is going to be the downfall of contact sports as we know it. That's one. And then to get on Sunday is my biggest overreaction off of Sunday is like, bro, I hate it. Kirk Cousins tearing his Achilles is the worst thing for his career. Like that is I hate the fact that he tore his Achilles. The Vikings won the game. They have an opportunity to push for the playoffs. He's coming up on being an impending free agent. Like you don't know the future of him with the Vikings. You have a superstar wide receiver looking for a contract extension and him tearing his Achilles, literally just pivoting his foot. Like he just tore his Achilles, just stepping into the ground too hard. And it's going to finalize the rest of Kirk Cousins' career. That is going to hang over him for now. I think now that he tore his Achilles, I don't know if he's a starting quarterback 2 years from now because he's going to have to, this is too late in the season to tear an Achilles as a free agent. You're not going to be fully healthy until at the very least, the hope is start of the season. Now, Aaron Rodgers could debunk all that. Kirk Cousins could have the same surgery. Rodgers could come back at the end of the season and we're looking at Kirk Cousins' recovery. But at the end of the day, Kirk Cousins' career, the trajectory of the rest of his career, I think he had 4 to 5 to 6 years left of starting. I don't know if he'll be a starting quarterback 2 to 3 years from now because he tore his Achilles on Sunday. Too late in the season to really buy into free agency at this point. And on top of that, you don't know like that. Him tearing his Achilles, I guess my overreaction, it could be the downfall of the Vikings. The Vikings could be screwed because Kirk Cousins tore his Achilles. Because if they don't want to take that and re-sign him, and then they have to franchise tag Justin Jefferson, and Justin Jefferson kind of said he wants to play with Kirk Cousins. If Kirk Cousins went elsewhere, he would go play with him. He think they could be a dynamic duo. We've seen those reports. So now you could lose your franchise quarterback. You could lose your superstar wide receiver. And like the future of your team is in limbo because Kirk Cousins on a freakish accident tore his Achilles. Like this could change his trajectory. And I could see in 2 years, if you told me Kirk Cousins wasn't a starting quarterback, it would be because it goes back to the fact of the rehab process and everything of tearing his Achilles this late into his career. My bad on my quick rants. But flag football 2028, just make sure you pay attention to that because it's going to be the downfall of the NFL, I swear to God.
I do agree with you. I don't know if I agree that it's going to be the beginning of the downfall. But the thing with the Shiloh hit, the thing that irritates me is that when they started implementing this rule, I liked what they did in the whole, you call it on the field and then take a look, you review it.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, you want to get it right. That was one of the, I don't want to say the cleanest play I've ever seen, but one of the cleaner hits I've seen, especially this season.
It's as clean as you can get with hitting hard.
He definitely hit him with the shoulder. Did not hit him.
No helmet-to-helmet contact.
Like that.
Nothing.
So what? Like I don't. It's hard. Again, it's hard to defend the NFL and football as a whole when again we do see the trend of just
getting softer by the year.
Yep.
And they're promoting flag football. It's getting softer by the year. They're promoting flag football. The guys like Tom Brady and all these former athletes that sometimes we give a little too much hate on because we're like, oh, the old school cats be hating on the young guys. But they're like, the sport is getting softer and softer by the year. Think about it. I mean, there's people like it's going to be flag football soon. And then, guess what pops up? Flag football in 2028. That's America's way of trying to introduce what the product and what the fans think about the flag football product before, if they love it and they don't care about the Trent Williams of the world and the guys like Michael Parsons, TJ Watt, those guys, they can play linebacker on the 7-on-7 intra-squad scrimmage and nobody would care. But that you get rid of the Zach Martins and all those guys because you're there to watch the receivers, the quarterbacks, the running backs, the corners, the safeties, all the guys that make the big plays and big play names, and you get rid of some of that. I'm telling you, I think they're really on to something with flag football in 2028, and I think that had everything to do with America because who the hell else in the world wants to play flag football against us when they don't even got football leagues? This ain't rugby, buddy. This ain't rugby, buddy.
Kenneth, give me your overreaction.
So we're assuming that Shedeur Sanders is going to be in the 2025 draft, correct?
I would assume so, yes.
He's going to look really good in the Packers jersey.
So they pick up Jordan Love. Did they already pick up his fifth-year option? They did, didn't they? You got this year, next year. And
it's too late to give up on him for after this season, but they're giving up on him. Like, I don't know what you guys watched of that Packers game on Sunday.
I watched some of it.
I think it was mid-second quarter, he had like 20 passing yards. Like, just not even – it's not even competent at times. And what's funny is people are going to go and look at the stat line after. They're going to say that it wasn't that bad. Like, Jordan Love, like he finished with 229 and a TD and an INT. Like it wasn't all garbage time. And he was thrown for empty yards. And then when you asked him to go out and make a play for them in the fourth quarter, because let's face it, Kirk Cousins went down. Like that is a game that you are at home that you should then go on and win. And we already saw him earlier in the year benefit from a quarterback going down and getting hurt when they were down 17-0 to the Saints. And then Derek Carr got hurt, and then he went on to win the game there. And he wasn't even able to do that then. And he was playing one of the worst defenses in the entire NFL. And again, people are going to go, the box score watchers are going to go 229, a TD and a pick isn't that bad. If you watch that game, it was ugly from start to finish. Again, we talked about it on See You Sunday. I don't think that he has the greatest weapons in the world, but I don't think that Green Bay is going to be talking about winning football games I think next year when they stink again and they end up with a guy like Shedeur Sanders, then Matt LaFleur is going to be out of there. They're going to be starting over with a new head coach and a new quarterback, and that's going to be the Green Bay Packers for 2025 moving forward. So that's my overreaction, is that I think that they are going to be the worst team in football next year. I truly don't see any direction with this team. They got a 1-2 punch at running back that's like the battle of the mid every single week, because Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon ain't it. Like, they ain't it. They don't have great receivers. They've got Musgrave, two catches for 9 yards. Like, he's about as mid as it gets at tight end. Defense isn't very good either. Like, do I have to keep going on and on? Like, Green Bay just is a bad football team, and it's not going to get any better with this current regime that they have. And let's face it, it comes back to ownership as well, because they haven't drafted a wide receiver since the dawn of time, and they've never helped out their QBs. They've always just expected, well, we got Favre and Rodgers, so we can just throw out whoever. Those days are gone. At a certain point, you have to put weapons around what is not a Hall of Fame quarterback. He's going to the Hall of Mid at best. I'm not even putting him first ballot on that. He's probably the Hall of Terrible. Like,
first ballot.
First ballot Hall of Terrible. He can be in there with Ryan Leaf. They can go in together. They can talk about how great their lives are because they made all these millions being bums at the quarterback position, because that's what Jordan Love is.
So, like, just real quick to going, is this where Green Bay, like, okay, is this where Green Bay shits on Aaron Rodgers and goes and drafts a Marvin Harrison Jr.?
Yeah.
And where everybody gets to sit and look and be like, bro, you had Brett Favre, you had Aaron Rodgers, and you ain't ever turn and get no elite wide receiver like Marvin Harrison Jr. But now, because you understand, like, now it's Green Bay admitting we don't have a Hall of Fame wide receiver that can uplift talent. So now we just gonna go and get Marvin Harrison Jr. to hopefully see what his year 5 looks like. Because
I'll put it in perspective of how bad this truly is at their weapons. There are 20 wide receivers right now through the first 8 weeks that have over 500 yards receiving. Green Bay doesn't have a wide receiver with over 300 yards. 300.
That's like averaging like
weeks.
40 yards a
You
game.
don't have a single guy that's averaging 40 yards a week. That's crazy. That's crazy as an organization. But again, it comes back to the fact that they've never done it because they've just assumed that they have the talent at that position, and they don't. So, yeah, maybe they will go out and get Marvin Harrison Jr. I don't think that's even going to help because they don't have the guy to deliver the ball to him. And we're going to be talking about Shedeur and Marvin Harrison Jr. in Green Bay, the weirdest cheese combo that you've ever seen in your life in Green Bay. And that's where they're going to be at.
It would go against all morals of Green Bay fans to have a black quarterback. Superstar black wide receiver.
My brother-in-law waited like 20 years for season seats. They're opening up in 2025.
It would go against all the morals. They've had Jordy Nelson and Aaron Rodgers, and it just go against everything.
They tolerated Devontae Adams because he caught 15 touchdowns a year, and they're like, all right.
He caught 1,500 yards and 15 touchdowns. All right.
Fine.
You don't have to get us Wes Welker, buddy. We'll take you because you're 1,515 every year. Like,
no sharp cheddar, but we'll take some feta cheese, I guess. Like, I'm all in. Like, that's where they were at.
So Ken, just to clarify, you're not a fan of Jordan Love.
Is this isn't breaking news?
I'm not a fan of just Green Bay's direction.
This isn't breaking news. Ken has been hating on Jordan Love first off all year.
They haven't been preparing for life after Aaron Rodgers for years, and it started with the Jordan Love move.
Well, they thought they were when they drafted Jordan Love. They thought
again, you just went to the NFC Championship, and then you didn't try and get better. You were like, you know what? We got to punt it down the road. We got to punt it down the road.
Knowing
we could try and get better, but we're going to punt it down the road.
Knowing that your Hall of Fame quarterback was getting up there in age and could probably use a number 1 receiver. And
option.
You know who was there when they didn't draft, or you know who was there when they drafted Jordan Love?
Damn near every single fucking receiver.
T. Higgins, the guy that all of us had mocked.
Yeah, I wonder what that would have looked like to have Devontae Adams and T. Higgins as your 1-2 in the NFC.
All of us had, like, it wasn't unanimous. But throughout the mock draft process that we did that year, like, the overall consensus was like, hey, if we did a mock draft the way we do power rankings and let's all agree where certain players go, we would have all agreed that the Packers are going to get T. Higgins because it makes too much sense. They just went to the NFC Championship. They're going to get him another wide receiver because you can't just focus on Devontae Adams. T. Higgins was absolutely amazing coming out. Like we thought he was going to be a first-round receiver, and we thought he was going to go to Green Bay. So many mock drafts to the point it would be like it wasn't even your own take saying that T. Higgins was going to go to the Packers because everybody and their mama thought T. Higgins was going to go to the Packers. T. Higgins was sitting there, and you drafted a quarterback from BYU. Enough said. Like, enough said about what you decided.
Higgins and Michael Pittman were the next two wide receivers taken afterwards. Michael Pittman would have been fine as a number 2. Let's say they don't even go T. Higgins. Michael Pittman, instead, Aaron's having to call up Randall Cobb, who was
call him back. Like, hey, bro.
And
still
relying on Alan Lazard. I think it's just an overall Packers hatred. You'll call it a Jordan Love hatred. I think it's just the Packers have completely botched what should have been pretty simple rebuild of their roster or a revamp.
Yeah, and Aaron Rodgers even helped them out, like the way because he wanted out like 2 years ago, and they were able to keep him for another couple of years, restructure the contract, give him $100 million, and they still did nothing with it, and they deserve everything that they're about to get. But when you're spoiled like that with back-to-back Hall of Fame quarterbacks, them and the Colts, I don't feel bad for them at all.
Don't send this clip to my wife too. Just heads up.
Oh yeah, I was always wondering. Like every time you dig into the Packers, I'm like, oh yeah, I'd just love to hear the off-camera conversation between
my wife. My wife's not home. If she was, like, I'm talking about someone else.
You'd shut up.
Do you do that on another team? Like, yeah, it's a good thing Kirk Cousins got hurt.
You would do the husband thing and just be quiet. Like, oh, I'll just be quiet.
My overreaction is. It's a biased one again because I'm still in my feels about a lot of this. The Commanders needs to just completely burn the house down and rebuild from scratch. Fire Ron, fire Jack Del Rio. Everybody's on the trading block. I don't care. Yesterday I said everybody except Terry, but he doesn't deserve to be a part of this. He deserves so much better. So put Terry on the trading block. Let him go somewhere to be successful, win a ring. But everybody: Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne, Montez Sweat, Chase Young. Terry McLaurin, Sam Howell, everybody can go.
Wait, Sam Howell?
Yeah.
I thought you found no.
I want a complete rebuild.
But Sam Howell, though, like, bro, he balled yesterday.
No, I get it.
Wow, he's been balling, and now you're talking emotional. You keep Terry McLaurin. Maybe you get rid of Terry McLaurin just because he probably has some value to other teams. But you keep Sam. You could build
Sam Howell. I say get rid of Terry because, again, he deserves so much better than this. We're mistreating him. We're that toxic boyfriend that just abuses him.
Toxic boyfriend, Jesus Christ.
Yeah. He's in an abusive relationship with this franchise. He is treated like shit every Sunday, and then by Wednesday, we're saying sorry, we'll be better. I promise I'll never do this to you again. And the Sunday we're doing it all over again.
I feel so bad for him from fantasy perspective because he gets criminally underdrafted because we know the incompetence of Washington. And quite honestly, like, Sam Howell's been fine. Like, I think he's played very well. He played very well on Sunday once again. So he at least has a QB, but he's been criminally underdrafted for years just because Ron Rivera is a human being that coaches in the NFL.
He is a human being that coaches, that is on the sideline with a headset.
Yeah, I read that thing today about Bieniemy's basically just running things behind the scenes. Like, we're at all shocked that Ron's not coaching anymore.
Which at that point,
he won't be the head coach after this year.
He may not last the week, and if he does, if they lose this week, he's done. He'll be the first coach fired.
When is Black Monday? Like, when is Black Monday when they fire the head coaches?
January 8th. Is the actual day.
Like 2 months too late.
Yeah, does he? Yeah, I'm way behind. He doesn't make
January 8th should have been 2 weeks ago after we lost to that Friday after we lost to Chicago. That would have been the perfect time to fire him because our bye week's too late in the season. I don't want to wait that long. Should have fired him Thursday night.
You're going to be a little bit disappointed that you get New England this week.
I'm very disappointed we get New England
because that's like the perfect, like, Yeah, but we won, and now we're 4-5, and now we're moving, and everyone's just like, no, they aren't. Like it's New England
again with Ron. And here's the thing with Ron Rivera,
you wouldn't be shocked if they lost.
I would not be shocked if we get the brakes beat off of us.
Nah, I don't.
Bill comes out and wins 30-17.
Yeah, because that's what happened with the Bears. The Bears at the time, worst offensive line in the NFL, had hardly any weapons. Justin Fields was playing like, I think with the exception of the week before against, I want to say they played Houston the week before.
They played Denver because he played really good against Denver that week.
Okay, yeah. Like, with the exception of that, like, Fields was playing like Dookie up until that point, and dude balled out. DJ Moore had, I think, over 200 yards, 3 scores on 8 catches against us. Like,
he won fantasy leagues that week. Like, he won games that week.
If you had either him or Jamar Chase, you won. And lucky for me, I went up against Jelani that week, and he had DJ Moore and Jamar Chase. So I was done by 12 o'clock. I was realistically done.
Are you still alive? Like, DJ Moore.
Yeah, he had like 3 dudes that scored 50 points that week. Like, he literally put up 150 between 3 players. It was like, yeah, I could just retire after today. I'm done.
He could have benched everybody else and just those 3, and he still would have beat me. But yeah, I don't see it as, I don't think it's far-fetched that we lose. I don't think and I want to lose. This is the first time in my 31 years of being a fan of this team that I am actively rooting for losses. I want to get blown out. I want to lose by 30 plus points.
Calm down, Hoopers.
I'm gonna catch that one. Oh, we gonna bring that one back.
That one's on social later.
Oh, we getting that one. I gotta pull a Nick, and I gotta grab that one out the archives. I want to get that one out. Yeah, I'm getting that one. Yeah.
Hey, at least I'm not a dick guy. All right.
We're children. Like that's
okay. Dwight Howard. Oh, never mind. Let me stop. Oh, it's an NFL show.
I want to lose by 30. I want to get absolutely embarrassed. So that way, when I wake up Monday morning. I wake up just like with Jay Gruden. I wake up to the da-na-na, and read my phone. It says, breaking news, Commanders head coach Ron Rivera has been fired. Eric Bieniemy named interim head coach.
Well, y'all are going to be screwed with Eric Bieniemy too, because I don't think he's a good head coach. But hey,
even if he's not,
find out. We get an opportunity for the rest of the season to find out.
Worse.
He can't be worse.
No, he wouldn't be worse. The thing is like, see, here's the world. Here's what sucks for the Commanders is the possibility of Ron Rivera gets fired. Eric Bieniemy steps in as the interim head coach. He wins games. They hire him as the head coach, and then they go and absolutely suck next year. And now you're like, oh, hell. Yep. Like, now you're like, this is the world's worst scenario because Eric Bieniemy looked promising. We want him to be the head coach. He got the head coaching position. We signed him 2, 3, 4 years, whatever it may be. And then we go and suck, and we're like, oh, well, he wasn't the answer. Shit. Right after 1 year, we're right back at the head coach conversation with still possibly feeling like you got your franchise quarterback.
Yeah.
And it sucks that y'all didn't draft Sam Howell in the first in the first round. And I say that for the simple fact, if he's in year 2, he ball out next year. If he plays the way he's playing right now next year, bro, you're literally talking about he's going to be looking for a contract extension now. Yes, he's not playing to where we're like, oh, we're going to pay him Joe Burrow money or whatever, but he doesn't have a 5th-year option that you could pick up where you're not sitting here talking about having these contract conversations. He's going into year 4 without a guaranteed money after that year. What do guys do when they don't have no more money after their last year? They go into training camp dissatisfied. I don't think he'd be one of those dudes, especially acknowledging. I think he would play it out. And I think you'd even probably have a contract extension before because he's not going to get Joe Burrow money. So I think like you pay him 5 years and whatever, 5 years, 150, that average $30 million a year. You'd be like, yeah, we got a steal, but we got our guy for the future. But it's still those situations where when you're going into your last year of your contract, it can turn ugly because guys will not step on the field without 2 to 3 years of more guaranteed money. Yeah. Like we've seen it time and time again. And usually when it's your quarterback, they going to get their money before you test playing week 1 without them. They going to get their money for you walk into training camp without them taking snaps.
Yeah, I think he's
good enough to do, like, I think he's good enough to commit, like, If he played the way he's playing this year, and he finish off and he improves a little bit next year, and he continues building off how he's playing this year, I think I'd sign him to a Daniel Jones type contract. Maybe not $40 million, but the fact like I'm only tied to you for the next 2 years based on salary cap and dead money, but you're playing good enough that you deserve some type of money, $35 million a year. Think about it, in 2 years, $35 million for a quarterback is going to be absolutely nothing for a starting quarterback. So I think he deserves that Daniel Jones type of deal where we sign you for 4 years, but we get you at $35 million a year, but we're only tied to you for 2 years. So even if you absolutely suck after the first year after we signed you, we could get up off of that contract immediately. He's in that area where you're like, you feel good about where you're at quarterback. You have to. There's one thing you feel good about being a Commanders fan. It's got to be quarterback.
The only thing we feel good about right now.
Well, shit. I'd rather like my quarterback than be wondering what I'm going to do at quarterback. I'll tell you that. Like, if I was a team, I'd rather know I got a quarterback that could do something as opposed to be like, I'd rather be the Commanders of Sam Howell than the Packers and Jordan Love. I'll put it like that. That's what I'd rather be, the Commanders of Sam Howell than the Packers and Jordan Love.
That is true. So, time to play some bills. Time to pay some bills. You are looking to go to any NFL game that's coming up Sunday, trying to catch one of the last few games of the baseball season, World Series. Definitely check out our sponsors over at SeatGeek. Use promo code Off the Ball Network in all caps. Get $20 off your first purchase. Once again, Ken is not a Jordan Love fan. Just putting that out there. Just make sure that everybody understands that. Ken, go ahead and tell the people where they can find you and what you have coming up.
Yeah, you can follow me at HedgePod. I think I've got a picks video coming out tomorrow. I still got to figure out what I'm going to bet tomorrow, but I'll do that tonight. And I guess podcast episode recording tomorrow as well. I'll chat some NFL and some NHL. And yeah, thanks for having me.
Always fun, Mo.
Yeah, you can follow me at Mo_Cheese15 on Twitter. I just put out an episode I recorded yesterday with Jeff, just basically doing an Ohio State check-in. After winning the game, we weren't the most satisfied fans, but still great to rather be dissatisfied and be 8-0 than be in any other situation in college football. That doesn't appeal of being dissatisfied and still 8-0. Recording some NBA stuff later on this week. Probably gonna unleash on the fact I'm starting to hate Jimmy Butler, but hey, who cares? But yeah, I appreciate you for having me on. It's always great to be on Overreaction Monday because it's still in the prime of football season, and I still absolutely love football.
Absolutely. It's always a fun time. I think we're officially halfway done with this. Oh, next week we'll be halfway done. Not 16 games anymore. Anyways, we're coming up on the halfway point of the season. Y'all already know where you can find me, FNC Pod on Twitter, Football and Chill Podcast on Facebook and Instagram. Cruise Island, either Wednesday or Thursday. I have not solidified my schedule yet. Going over, I'm going to do a deep dive into NFL officiating and why it's gotten so bad over the years, and what would be my solution if I was a commissioner. Once again, catch us on See You Sunday this Saturday, 11 a.m. Eastern. Plan on having at the very least these two guys back with me to do that. And again, Overreaction Monday next Monday. Hope to see you guys there. For Ken and Mo, I'm Cruz.